Okay, welcome everyone to session 5E. This is the panel discussion following on from the thinking about concealing your gender identity as a woman on your resume, which we had earlier, which was very, very interesting. So if you missed that, get the recording if you can, because it was really good. Run through the housekeeping. I'm not sure if I'm actually supposed to say that. But anyway, please remain on mute, okay? Unless you want to ask a question or anything, you cannot mute. But you can put the questions into the chat box, which might be better. But I think it's kind of interactive discussion. There's not that many of us here, so it'd be better to do that. This session, like all the GSE UK virtual conference sessions, is being recorded and it will be made available in due course. So please remember to provide your feedback, very, very important for this session, 5E. You can do this via the BYOA and clicking the feedback link on the session. So I'll just introduce the panel here. We have Donna, Eleni, Swati, and Aileen is going to be our facilitator. I'm not sure if everyone knows Aileen, but I'll just give a quick introduction for those that may not. Aileen is Aileen Wynn. She's a mainframe systems programmer. She's with AIB, and she has over 25 years experience in systems programming, network storage, and ZOS, everything as far as I can see. She knows a lot. She's an IBM champion. She's a fellow of the Irish Computer Society, and she's an active member of WITS Ireland. She's also promotes women in IT within the bank itself where we work. I have the privilege of working with Aileen. She's been part of the GSE UK team since 2016, and she founded the WITS stream at the GSA UK conference in 2017, and it's really grown since. And the amount of women at the last conference that we had in person was fantastic to see. We couldn't get everyone into the picture, I think, to be honest. It was great at that. So outside of mainframe, she's got a lot of passions, but one of her main passions is family history and genealogy, and she's completed her master's in this area, so she's very experienced. And if you want an interesting discussion, just talk to her afterwards. It's very interesting. So I'll hand it over to Aileen now, who will introduce everyone else and start the process of the panel. It's great. Thank you.
Thanks a million, Una. Okay. I know stuff, but I don't know database stuff. You know your stuff way better than me. So first thing I'm going to do is introduce our panelists today. So our first panelist is Donna Hoody from Phoenix Software. So Donna has more than 30 years of financial services, technology, marketing, and executive management experience spanning the asset management, software development, consulting, and nonprofit industries. Prior to joining Phoenix Software as their chief marketing officer and head business development, she served as the executive director and chief operating officer for Share Association, the first and the largest independent technology association user group. Prior to joining Share, she served in various leadership positions where she provided a wide range of strategic technology, operational marketing guidance and support. Donna has been involved with the Open Mainframe project since she was executive director for Share Association and has continued during her tenure at Phoenix Software. She's been a member of the OMP Marketing Committee since 2019 and currently serves as the chair of that committee. So welcome, Donna.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Eleni. I can't say your surname, I'm so sorry.
That's okay, you don't have to.
Placapital. Sorry, I should have practiced that earlier. That's on me. I am a bad person. Anyway, as a seasoned Scrum Master and Agile coach at Broadcom, she brings a wealth of experience and passion for empowering women in IT. Her strong professional background includes 5 years as a Scrum Master and then transitioning to Agile coach. She specializes in professional coaching, particularly empowering women in the workplace. After a triumphant 15-year battle against an eating disorder, she redirected her life towards psychology and life coaching. Her story underscores the transformative power of resilience and determination. Now her mission is to inspire and guide others on their path of recovery and self-discovery. Our final speaker on our panel today is Swati Javi. As a product owner for Broadcom, Swati is responsible for translating product manager strategies to development tasks and learning the customers' and markets' requirements. Swati has over 16 years of experience in IT as a developer, QA, and business analyst in mainframe, as well as a modern mainframer in DevOps. She's changed her stream from development to product management recently, since she believes understanding and listening to others' problems is her strong forte. Swati lives in Prague with her husband and her daughter, and she has a passion for acquiring new knowledge and giving back to the community. So we've got a brilliant panel today, and I'm really, really excited. This panel is following on from our discussion on thinking about concealing your gender identity as a woman on your resume. And the first thing we're going to do is ask our panelists if they want to say anything further on their introduction, and second of all, yay or nay to disguising your gender identity. So, Donna, do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. It occurred to me when Una introduced you, I left off that I'm also an IBM champion this year for the first time, so I'm very excited about that. Yay. I have to say that when I read the abstract for your session, ladies, I had to read it a second time because I was like, what? Is that a thing? I wasn't sure. If I thought about it in great detail, I don't know that I would ever do that. I think it would be an interesting experiment, though. I've spent a lot of years in a hiring and firing position, you know, being responsible for that. And I know I personally have never put much stake in anyone's gender or ethnicity or anything. When I look at resumes, I look at the skill set. But that's just me. I know not everyone is that way. I'm also a bit of an in-your-face kind of person. So, you know, for me to hide something about myself is not something I would normally do. But I do think it would be a fun experiment. I also have to say that the video that you showed at the beginning, I actually just watched the Barbie movie on Saturday. and so I was like, wait, I've heard this. And I was walking around my living room going, amen, amen. So it was spot on. I was like, this was totally true. So
Good. Eleni, do you want to come in there?
Sure. Well, it occurred to me when we started with Swati exploring this topic that I would never do that as well. But having all this research and exploring that it happens. Yeah, it's very, very interesting because you go deeper into the research or asking people. That's the most interesting because first you get it as a fact and then you actually discuss it, you share it, and then you realize, whoa, it's happening, it's actually happening. So this is what we came across also, that things that do not happen actually to us, it doesn't mean that they do not happen out there, right? So it can be that people don't want to share it because they're scared, like, no, it might be my misunderstanding that it happened here, right? Or who is going to listen to me? Will they take me seriously? Or is that a thing? Yeah, is it happening? Or should I go with the whole concept of all the people being in a company that we have to have diversity, but it's happening even inside the company after you're hired, right? So it's very, very interesting. After you start digging into, you find it's like the Pandora box. You open it and you figure out a lot of things happening there.
you know, I would say I'm a little older than you ladies are. So I've been around a little longer. And so I can definitely tell you it happens. I've personally been involved in situations like that. And some of it, I would say, though, when I look at back when I first started my career decades ago versus today, things are very different today than they were back then, right? But I've had situations where I was the only female in a room full of male IT counterparts, you know, in a meeting, and a peer of mine who was running the meeting treated me very poorly while I was in the meeting. And I've walked out of that meeting. I walked out of that meeting and had several of the other males in the room actually come up to me and say, I can't believe he treated you that way. And, you know, I look at them and I'm like, well, thank you, but you didn't do anything to stop it. So, you know, there's that. But my point there is that I think there's some generational things that are in play, come into play a lot of times as well too, and also cultural. So, for example, the gentleman who I was just referring to, who was my peer, who treated me very poorly in that meeting, treated me very poorly all the time. And culturally, he was not a native of the United States, right? He came here later in life. He came from a country where that was the way they treated women in that country, right? And even though he was now here in the United States, he brought that with him. And that's what he thought was the right way to treat people, and very specifically to treat women. And so there are times, you know, we're becoming all over the world, we're more and more ethnically diverse, right? And so sometimes we have to remember that the cultural differences come with the person, and that will sometimes you know, taint, if you will, how they look at you and how they treat you, because that's what they were raised with, right? And so that, you know, so there's that. There's also the generational differences, right? The older generation. I'm a Gen Xer. I'm proud to say I'm a Gen Xer, and I'm not a baby boomer. I missed it by like just a couple of years. I like to remind my husband that he's a baby boomer and I'm not. But there's some culture, there's some generational differences there too. A lot of the older generation, sometimes they lose their filters. They don't have filters. I was very proudly communicating to someone here recently, an older person, and I said that I was very proud and thrilled that my I Am a Mainframer podcast, I was told, was the most viewed podcast over the last 5 months. And I was very proud of that. And then I was told, well, of course it is. You're nice to look at.
Mm-hmm.
I'd watch it over and over again because you're nice to look at. And I was insulted. I was angry. I was livid because that wasn't what I wanted to hear. And so when I heard you talk about like beauty or whatever, I don't think I'm beautiful. I like makeup. I like clothes. I like hair. I like shoes. But, you know, it insulted me to have someone tell me, and the person wasn't trying to insult me. They were actually trying to compliment me, but it was insulting to me because that's not what I wanted to hear, right? I wanted to hear that my podcast was good for its content, not because I was nice to look at. So, sorry, I just word vomited all over you guys.
It's fine. I think we go through these kind of situations in our daily life now and then. Recently, I was going to a business school to do a TED style talk. I was about to go and talk to university students about project management, what is the life in of a software product, etc. They invited us. So I mentioned to my team that, hey, I would be not joining the stand-up tomorrow. I'm going to the university. And the question was, are you going to a cooking class?
Oh, nice. Nice. Okay.
So my response, actually, he's a veteran mainframe developer. I come from the culture that I respect older people. We were brought up in such a way, I couldn't give him any immediate response. I just took it. And I shook it off at that moment, but then later when I went home and I thought, why did he make that comment? It was not nice of him, but I think he was just treating me like a daughter, granddaughter.
Sure. Well, it's generational, right? So, you know, when I was in school, I don't have a college degree actually, so I didn't go to college, but you know, when I was in high school, the girls were all directed towards the typing classes, the shorthand classes. I actually learned to write shorthand. I could write 200 words a minute because, you know, those were the classes they directed us to, right? Accounting, typing, shorthand, those types of things were what because we were all going to be secretaries. If we weren't going to be housewives, we were going to be secretaries. And so, you know, a cooking class, home ec, right? You know, when I was in junior high, all the girls went to home ec, all the boys went to, you know, wood shop. You know, that's just the way it was. And that's what our culture was back then. It's changed a lot now, but I think that's why you don't see as many women of my generation and the older generation, right? The baby boomers, you don't see them in these technical fields. You don't, because they didn't do STEM back then. They didn't even, you know, they didn't even bother to tell you it existed, let alone encourage you to get involved in it. So, you know, that's what he knows.
So when such people come out of the community, you mentioned somebody from different culture, they came to
Mhm.
US and still they were brought up with the same mindset. Do you think that they are passing the similar mindset to the next generations, or how should we react? What should we deal with such kind of people? Because I come across these culture differences a lot because
Mhm.
we work in multinational company. What is your suggestion? How should we react? How should we bring awareness?
You know, it's hard, right? So when I was in that situation in that meeting and I was being treated the way I was being treated, I had to make a decision. And it's a decision that we as women have to make all the time. Are we going to fight back? Are we just going to take it? Are we going to get upset? What are we going to do, right? And my favorite thing to say is this the hill I want to die on today, right? Is this the sword I'm going to fall on? And you really have to assess the situation and decide whether or not um, that particular battle is the one that you wanted to fight, right? So just like when the gentleman asked you if you were going to take a cooking class, you did two things. One, you respected him because he was your elder, but two, you also made a decision that that wasn't the hill you were going to die on today, right? So it wasn't worth fighting back for. And so and then there's the, you know, how do you fight back, right? And I chose to fight back in that meeting by holding my ground and not letting him see that he was impacting me, which is kind of the burden we always have to carry, right? It's that if we react the wrong way, just like your video at the beginning, right? If we react the wrong way, then we get labeled. And so you have to kind of make that judgment call. What's more important right now? Is it more important that I focus on the topic that the meeting was about and holding my ground because I know that I'm right? Or is it more important for me to push back on him and show him that he's in the wrong with regards to how he's treating me? Now, I chose not to do the latter. I chose to stick to the topic that was at hand. But it's an interesting question. That particular person, you have to wonder, right? If that's the way they go through their day, then is that how they're teaching their children, right? I like to think I have two children. I have a son and a daughter. And I like to think that me being the way that I am and being of the strength that I have taught my children to not be that way. And I've observed it with my son. I've observed it with the way my son interacts with all the females in his life, not just his coworkers. And so I'd like to think that I haven't allowed any of that to be passed down to him. But you just don't know, especially when it's cultural, right? Because culture is important to people. And so when you have those people who are behaving that way because it's a cultural thing, then there's a chance it's going to get pushed down. But if they're here, so and I say here, like if you're in the United States, then the children are getting exposed to both sides of it, right? You would hope. They're in school, they're seeing the way people outside of their own culture are interacting with other people, other genders, other ethnicities, and you have to hope that the child is strong enough to be able to balance the two out. So it's interesting. But it did happen. It does happen. I try not to focus on it, but I think I do my best to um, try to support others that are around me. And maybe that comes from my age as well, in that the older I've gotten, the more I kind of reflect back on the battle I've had to fight to get to where I am, and what can I do to help someone else? What can those experiences offer to someone else? And so I try to help others as much as I can. Um, to help to build them up and to kind of stand behind them and be that that person that they have to come to talk to get advice from, that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, it comes from the experience. So when I started my career, if I look back, I knew I was naive. I was saying no. I was not saying no to anything. So whatever my product manager or project manager comes and says, okay, today you need to stay till 9 p.m., I was not saying no. Then I attended a couple of sessions, and there is a book called as The Art of Saying No.
Yes.
So we I think we adapt and we learn and we try to push back wherever necessary. But I think
Yeah,
it comes from the experience as well. If the same person after 10 years tells me the same thing, I know what I would answer.
right.
But not today.
But not today. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And context is everything, right? You know, like I said, you know, I have people, I have a house full, I had a house full of people this weekend. I had family and stuff this weekend. And I said something about that I was going to be on this panel today. And all of the folks that I was surrounded with were all retired people who've never been in this industry or done anything even remotely close to kind of what my job is. And the first thing they looked at me and said, what does that have to do with selling software? Because I'm a marketing and sales person. And I kind of just out of the corner of my eye, because it was family and because I could be obnoxious, I looked at them and I said, what doesn't it have to do with that? It's, you know, it's me building my brand. You talked about building brand earlier, right? And, you know, it's really hard sometimes to get people to talk to you, especially if they don't know you and you're wanting to sell them software. And if I've built a brand and I'm out there on LinkedIn and I'm out doing these kinds of things, then people are getting more and more exposed to me. So then when I reach out to somebody and say, hey, I'd like to have a conversation with you, maybe they know even just a little something about me, right? It makes it just a little easier for me to have that conversation or start that conversation. And so I looked at them and I'm like, what doesn't it have to do with this? What are you talking about?
I think there's many ways this conversation could go. But one of the things we were talking about was I have two things that are going through my head right now. One of them is there was a load of experiments done in the 70s, and I'd love to see what would happen now because things have changed. But the experiment was with 6-month-old babies, and they were looking at whether people would interact with children. Now, there's a number of different studies, but essentially they all found the same thing. They were basically taking kids around 6 months, so babies that don't know a lot but are learning everything and are sponges, dressing them in boy clothes, dressing them in girl clothes, and sometimes gender neutral. So the people coming in and seeing the babies didn't necessarily know what gender they were. And what they found was when a child was dressed in blue, which was a boy color, they were more likely to hand them boy type toys, as in a car or a ball, rather than the doll, which was the girl toy. Right. And they were more likely to kind of rough and tumble with the child as well.
Oh, sure.
Whereas when they had the girl or the child in pink, which they didn't necessarily know the gender, they were more likely to hand them a doll or, you know, oh, what a pretty little girl. And it was the way in which they interacted with both at that young age was already separating the genders. So is it any wonder that as we get older and older, we treat people differently, and those biases are built in so, you know, so deeply?
Sure, that's the way we grew up, right? I mean, it's you know, that's the way things were back then in the 50s and 60s and the 70s. And so you know, a lot of that is the way we grew up. And I like to think, like I said, with my children who are millennials, that has started to change, right? And I think it started to change because those of us kind of, you know, in the middle there, if you will, experienced enough of both sides of it to say, I like this side better. And so I'm going to teach my children this, right? And so it's kind of inherent in a lot of people, just because that's all they knew.
I wonder though, if they did that, if they repeated that experiment, would it be different? I would hope it's different, but I wonder.
I would hope so, but
Yeah.
yeah, it just depends. I think there's so many factors there.
I know I'm not
I
part of
think
the
it's
panel.
changing.
Sorry, I was just going to say it
Sorry,
here. I
Rebecca.
don't know whether but we have segregated schools for gender, and it's still quite a lot of just boys' schools,
True.
girls' schools. So we haven't moved on. And my kids went to a mixed school, and I see a big difference from them, interacting with each other compared to I went to an all-girls school and boys were alien, and we didn't get the same exposure like to maths and stuff like that. It still happens here, but I don't know in other countries what it's like. But definitely here, females are treated differently to
Yeah.
males still. Yeah, so
That's
it's
interesting. I know back in the day here, at least from my experience and exposure, it was the religious schools that did that, where they separated, they had all girl
But
colleges
our
and
schools are
stuff like
mostly
that.
religious. Yeah.
By default, our local schools are Catholic.
Yeah.
There are some that aren't. There are
Yep.
some, but by default, the local school here. So everywhere else in the world, people aim to go to the private Catholic single-sex school. In Ireland, by default, you go to the private or you go to the public Catholic single-sex school. It's only the people that can afford it that get education outside of that.
Ah, okay. And
It's a bit reversed.
Yes, it's just the opposite here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
so you were mixed. The public schools, you were mixed. They were non-denominational. They were just, government run, if you will, local government, whatever run. But the private schools were usually the Catholic schools, and those were the ones where they tended to separate the boys from the girls. Yeah.
Whereas we're single-sex schools, and you've got the boys' school, the girls' school, and predominantly run by the Catholic Church.
Yes.
But they're the state schools, like. So yeah.
Okay.
I don't know
That's
what it's like
interesting.
for you two.
When I was
Here,
growing up, I had, there were some girls' schools, boys' schools, but luckily I was in both medium. All the girls and boys were in the school, co-education. I was
Yeah.
looking for that word, co-ed school. And when I came to my 11th grade, my parents decided that I should go to some girls' school because apparently I'm most outspoken person in the class. And I come from this culture that they set the wedding match for me, and if I am so outspoken, I might fall in love with a guy. So I boycott. I don't eat food for 2 days, and then they decided that okay, your wish. If you want to go to a co-ed college, go for it. But you have to marry a guy that we chose. That didn't work out at the end, but yeah.
But those are the cultural differences, right? And that culture is important to your family, to your parents. And I get that, right? And you sometimes you have to just some of that you have to learn to accept or to adjust to, right? Just there are all different kinds of things that you have to learn how to kind of work with and realize at some level that maybe some of it's not actually personal, right? I used to work with an Indian gentleman. He worked for me, and he and I were like best friends. Every day at 2:00, we'd go to Starbucks next door and we'd get coffee. And I learned so much from him about his culture, and the things that he would do, the things that he had been taught. And my funniest story with him is that we would have to go through a set of revolving doors to get in and out of our building to go to Starbucks next door. And it never failed that every time we would get to that stupid revolving door, we would run into each other, physically run into each other. And finally, one day I stopped just short of the revolving door to go back into the building. And I said, Perry, what's the deal? Like, why am I running into you every time I go to the store? And he said, because what he was taught is that if the door is moving already, I go first and he goes into the stall behind me to keep it moving. If the door is not moving when we get up to it, then it's his job to go in first so that he can push the door and I go into the stall behind him. And I was like, oh, okay. So now I understand why I'm literally running into you physically every single time we try to go through this door, because that's what he was taught. That was part of his, those types of manners were something he was taught. He was brought up that way. Once he explained it to me and I understood, we never ran into each other ever again because I knew what to do. Right. It wasn't a matter of I had to say to him, no, Perry, I don't want you to do that. It was like, oh, okay, now I get it. Right.
Mm.
Now I understand. So now I won't run into you anymore. If I walk up to the door, it's not moving, I'm going to let you go first. But it's just, it's, you have to decide, right? You decided that it was so important to you. You didn't eat for 2 days. You know, me not, not letting him push the door, it didn't matter to me, right? It was not something that I needed to fight back on. It was something I just needed to understand. And once I did, it was all good.
They're very wise words. Sorry. You see, for younger people fighting battles that they don't need to fight. Choose
Well,
your battles.
and that comes with age, right? That comes with age. It comes with being a parent. It comes with being a spouse. It comes with being a female in the workplace, and you really just do have to stop and take a step back. And I do always say, is this the hill I want to die on today? And
Mm.
how important is it to me, and what value is the fight going to bring? So there are other ways, and some of those other ways are, like I said, helping other people instead, right? Instead of pushing back and fighting back and yelling and screaming and doing whatever on a particular day, it may not make the difference. What may make the difference is I do a coffee clutch with a couple of folks once a month, and we just sit and talk, right? We talk through what's going on in your day, and how's things going with your job. And I had one last week with someone, and she was telling me about how her male boss was kind of picking at her and saying, well, why are you going to go to this event, or why do you want to go to that event? Why these opportunities just seem to fall into your lap? And I looked at her and I said, no, they're not. They're not just falling into your lap. You're working for them.
Mhm.
You've been working on building your brand, and people are coming to you and they're asking you to come to these events because you're working for it. And you, without being obnoxious, you need to figure out a way to communicate that to him and make him understand that these opportunities aren't just falling into your lap, that you're actually working hard for them. And he needs to see that. And so it's my goal to try and, help her, if I can, figure out how to do that, right? Or point out to her that, don't get upset when he says that, just correct him. You don't need to fight with him, but you do need to correct him.
That kind of reminds me when we started like getting to know each other a little bit more with Swati and getting to know more the women here in the company. We realized that we needed to talk to each other, to express our thoughts, right? So we had something was happening, something was concerning us. So how do we say it? Even in the beginning, personally, myself, I was scared. How will I say, will someone listen to me? Or, will it be trustful? How to build the trust, how to share, how to get the experience. And then the more I talked, the more I realized that the other women wanted as well to share their perspectives. And at the end, we realized when we were talking about building our brands, we realized that we had to do it somehow by ourselves in the beginning. We were having other women telling us, you have to praise yourself. There's nothing. I heard before, I think in our talk, that I have to, is it too much? Am I showing off? and there's nothing about showing off, like you putting yourself, your worth, right? So Swati could relate, I think, a lot, and Karen relate that. So
it so happened that before 6 months, I was told that you are good at your job, but you are just good at your job. So I decided, okay, I'm good at my job. I'm good at something else. Let's start building my brand. Then the first thing that I did was I filled a work travel request to GSC UK. So once I came back from GSC UK, you should see my confidence levels. They were just top on the top of the corner. And after coming, I know I can do everything. I can do anything. Like Swati is amazing. So I submitted couple of sessions here. I attended GSC Germany, GSC here, GSC there, and the next month I'm going to GSC Netherlands as well. And from that time, I think I traveled to already on 12 business trips, building the
Nice.
brand.
I will be at GSC in the Netherlands, the Nordics.
Oh,
So we need to meet up.
yes, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. But you're right. You have to surround yourself with others, right? You have to have a safe space. And that's what I try to do with anybody who I have the opportunity to do it, right? Is a safe space. I mean, I tell the people who work with me, my office is a safe zone, right? If you need to come in and you need to talk about something, you just need to scream, holler, get it off your chest, whatever. This is a safe zone, right? The only thing I ask of you is when you hit the door, before you close it, you tell me what you expect of me before you come in. Do you just want me to listen? Do you want me to give you feedback, or do you want me to actually take action? And once I know what you want from me, then have at it. Shut the door, holler, scream, fling your arms around, do whatever you want to do, and let's talk about it, right? And that's what you need. You need someone who you can talk to, right? Because sometimes we all write stories in our heads, right? We all do it. You do it within 5 seconds. It's a proven fact. If you see somebody walking down the street, walking towards you, you will write a story in your head about that person in 5 seconds. And a lot of times they're negative stories. And when you feel like you might be being treated badly, it's definitely going to be a negative story. But if you take the time, if you have a safe place to go and have a conversation and you say it out loud, right? You say what's in your head out loud. You talk about what happened to me, how it made me feel, how I reacted, how I think I should have reacted. It all starts to change a little bit, right? That story that you had written in your head starts to unwind a little bit. And even you yourself will start to realize, oh, maybe I'm blowing this out of proportion. Or, oh, maybe this is worse than I thought it was. And, oh, I did this, but maybe I should have done that. So it helps to have somebody at least that you can actually just go talk to who if nothing more will just listen. Because it will help to build your confidence, right? It'll also help to train you to fix those stories in your head, right? I see somebody walking down the street wearing something that I would never wear, and the first reaction is, "Ooh, I would never wear that." And then I'm like, "Oh, wait, you go, girl." I have to stop myself. And so, but it's training. You have to teach yourself how to do that. So
At the same time, I think it is important for us to teach others as well. So, for example, in the past, a girl was making a passive comment on somebody else's dressing. So we don't need to care. It is her dress. I mean, it's her body. It is her wish how she wants to look. So I mentioned, my husband always says that everybody has their own wish. You don't need to comment. So she indirectly understood that. I indirectly told her that you should not comment. So
absolutely.
we should,
Absolutely.
I
Even the
think,
story I write in my head, right? The story I'm writing in my head is that I would never wear that. right? And so I don't like it because I would never wear it, but then I have to remind myself I'm not wearing it, right? I'm not wearing it. And if that's what you want to wear, then have at it, baby. you know, but because I pay attention to things like that, right? That I look at it from that filter of, ooh, I wouldn't wear that. But then I have to remind myself, you're not wearing it. And it's okay. Everybody has their own style, and let me be me and you be you. And I think that's a song.
Yep.
You're turning into Bob, by the way. It's
I'm turning
Serenadius.
into Bob. Oh no. Thank goodness I didn't sing and I'm tone deaf.
In fairness, I can think of worse people to turn into.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I bring one question now that I'm having, and I actually kind of not discussed it, like brought it up with Swati before our panel calls. So I heard it a little bit in the conversation we had before, but my question, and I think it was another person who mentioned it, was when we first started, how much should I try to prove myself? How much? Like I kind of felt this question mark to myself. Why do I need to try so hard? So the first impression I get as soon as I, dose myself into biases and everything, I need to try a lot compared to men, for example. So from your perspective, how hard do you try, or how naturally is it coming to you?
Oh, it's not natural at all.
Mm.
Not even. I think you have to decide what your end game is, right? And what is it you're trying to achieve, and how important is that to you, right? So where are you trying to get to, and how important is it to you? And that's going to dictate how hard you're going to have to work. And yes, it's probably harder than your male counterparts are going to have to work, but if it's important to you, then you're going to do it. And for me, that's what it was. I've always worked twice as hard as everyone around me. But it was because that's where I wanted to be, right? I had a goal, it was out there, and I'm here and I need to get there. So I'm going to do what I have to get there. And I think that's got to be the deciding factor.
Did it ever discourage you from reaching your goal that you have to work twice as much as harder as a male person?
Yeah. Um, Always, right? When you get really tired, when you get really stressed out, when you get really burnt out, you kind of sit down and you're like, why? Why am I doing this? Why am I working so hard? It it never goes away. It never goes away. On the good days, doesn't bother you, but when you're tired and you're burnt out and you're stressed out and you've got things going on with your children and your spouse and your job and traveling and this, that, and the other, at some point it all gets to be to a point where you just kind of melt down. I tried to time box myself, kind of weird that way. I'm allowed 15 minutes to feel sorry for myself. And at the end of 15 minutes, I have to let it go because there are more important things to focus on. And then I move on, right? So if that means I lock myself in the bathroom and cry my eyes out for 15 minutes, then I lock myself in the bathroom and I cry my eyes out for 15 minutes, and then I put my big girl pants on and I go right back at it. But
on good days, my motto is hard work always pays off, and on bad days, enough is enough.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Both fair and good.
Yes.
I like the idea of time boxing it, feeling sorry for myself though. That's actually kind of good.
That is actually
You know
really
what?
good. Take the time and allow yourself be.
Yeah.
You have to let yourself have those feelings, right? But you need to do it in a safe space and and whatever, but you also can't let it control you. At least that's kind of been my mindset, is that I can't let it control me. I can't let it just absorb me. I have to get it out and move on.
I think I have the habit of talking to people. Eleni has been my wall. So I asked her for a shoulder. So whatever frustration I have, I went it out in a room because I know that we have that trust. So did it ever occur to you that you need to have a person whom you can speak with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why, I went through a lot of my career without having someone like that. And so that's why I make as much effort as I can to be that person for other people now. Because I know what it's like to not have that. And so I kind of try to go out of my way, if I see an opportunity to be that person for someone else, because you do need that, right? You need that somebody that, like I said, you can say something out loud, and either they just listen to you and say nothing in return, or otherwise they maybe ask you a question that makes you go, yeah, or whatever it is. But if you have that trusted person, then you're going to get exactly what you need from them. And that's invaluable, in my opinion. And it's something I wished I would have had, um, all throughout my career, and I didn't. So I do whatever I can to be that person for as many people as I can.
Some years ago, actually, from the very start of, or pretty much the start of working in AIB, I had somebody like that. But it used to be that the two of us would go outside, and my friend smoked, I didn't, but we'd go outside for a cigarette and we'd both rant because both of us would have things that are just ruining our head, just really annoying us. And we wouldn't necessarily listen to the other person's rant. We'd just like let rip and
Yeah.
we'd have our rant, which was fine. So I
Yeah.
usually kind of listened to the first couple of bits, so I kind of knew what the subject was. And then after that, it didn't matter because she was letting off steam, and the same for me,
Yeah.
which was fine until one day this person would always put on what we call the Pollyanna glasses and try and see the good in somebody. And I was ranting about a particular person who had really, really upset me. And my friend tried to put the Pollyanna person on. And I exploded because this was the fourth time in like a week and a half I'd ranted about this person, because we were working on a project together and they were not pulling their weight and they were causing us problems. And she suddenly realized she needed to listen to the subject of the rant. After that, it didn't matter.
Right.
But you always need somebody.
Yeah, you definitely need
Yes.
somebody. And that's why I said, like, with anybody I work with, safe zone. Just tell me what you want when you hit the door. You want me to just to listen? You want my feedback, or do you want me to take action? Once you let me know what you expect from me, then have at it. This is safe. Like, whatever, just let it out, because everybody needs that outlet.
I think I'm playing the same part, but I mentioned about an intern in our session, right? So
Mhm.
to that intern, so I just made sure that if she has some kind of trust problems or any person whom she need to talk to, I'm giving my shoulder to her.
And how's that intern doing now?
She's studying.
Okay. Hopefully she'll come back in.
Can I
Yeah, I
ask a
think
question?
it's important that we support each other.
Very important. But I just want to ask a question, something I know I'm on the panel either, so I'm interfering here, but just have you come across a lot of people saying, oh, she got it because she's a woman? It's something that I've come across, and I'm still coming across, and it's really,
Yeah.
really because of the gender balance and stuff like that. So someone who got promoted up, and they'll say, oh, she got it because she's a woman, and it's just, it really, really, and they'd say to me, or they'd say to other people, and I know when I got promoted, all that, people would say they got it. No, I think it was only the women were in for it, so it wasn't really that difficult. But yeah, it's a comment that people pass, and it's easier for women to get promoted now, which isn't true, but they still see it. Do you come across that, or do you deal with this, or do you just ignore it?
I have not really seen it. I personally have not really seen it, but I spent the bulk of my career as a developer in the distributed side, in the financial industry in Chicago, which is a really big old boys club. And
Yeah.
so is the distributed world. And so I didn't have a lot of females around me that were, getting promoted, because there were so few of us. So no, I didn't really see that. Since I've moved over, um, I'm in a very small company right now, and so I would say we're pretty balanced with regards to gender here. And I don't believe that it's somebody trying to keep a balance. I think it's just um uh, it's just been that the best people are in the jobs here. So I think I'm very fortunate. Um however, but that is an interesting question. I don't know if anybody else has seen that. I certainly I haven't noticed it, but
I think I
Yeah.
actually know specifically what's going through Una's head when she
Yeah,
says
well,
that.
not just that. I have had it said it to me about my own daughter as well, who is a student, but she has done a lot of internships and stuff like that. And people would say, "Oh, she got that because she's a girl in an industry where there's very few girls," um, which is not actually correct. But it's people have passed that comment to me. Oh, isn't she
sure,
lucky she's a girl and she's got it? And I find it kind of sad that young people are still thinking that way
that is
about
sad.
yeah. And like she's in a male dominated, obviously in technology as well, so male dominated area. But yeah, so it is still there. Maybe it's just the kind of people that, if you're very privileged, maybe that's the way you look at it in society. Maybe it's
You
different.
know, one of the things that, and I'm going to go back to my notes that I wrote down after your presentation earlier. Um, Something that occurred to me. Someone once told me a long time ago. They reminded me when I was interviewing for a different job that the interview process is actually a two-way street. Not only is the employer interviewing you to see if you're a fit for their role and their company, but it is your opportunity to interview them and interview the company to see if they are a good fit for you. And I think that that's something that is lost on a lot of people, that they don't realize that part of what they should be doing is interviewing the interviewer, right? And the company to see if that company is the right place for you. And if you learn to ask the right questions and be as observant as you possibly can, you'll learn a lot. And there may be times where you'll realize that even though they may offer you a job, that might not be the right place for you because of some of these things, right? And I think people get so caught up in the I need a job, I need a job, and oh, they offered me a job, and how good does that make me feel, that they forget that. They lose sight of the fact that it's a two-way street, and you need to be interviewing them too.
I remember a funny incident. So when I was a campus recruitee. That means when I was studying, I got recruited to an Indian company. So it so happened that there is a particular company who is known to just hire women employees, women students. So there goes my classmate, and he asks the interviewer, "Why are you all only known as hiring the women employees? What have you got problem with the male candidates? You have to interview me. If I'm not the right fit, tell me." And guess what? He got selected to that company. He was the only male candidate who got selected.
Wow. But it
Wow.
was because he spoke up, right? And you can do the exact same thing, right? You have to speak up. Sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't, and you just have to be willing to. You have to be willing to advocate for yourself. That's a lesson I learned a very long time ago. Um, just from growing up, from my childhood being the way it was, I learned that nobody was going to fight for me. I had to fight for myself, right? And so that's kind of why I am who I am today. The kind of person I am today is because I learned a long time ago that nobody was going to hand me anything. That if I wanted it, I needed to work for it and I needed to fight for it. And I'm not going to sit around and wait for someone else to give me something. You have to ask for it.
Just so you know, we're coming up to the top of the hour. So I'm going to do a very quick fire last word for everybody, and then we will say thank you and close the session. So I'll go alphabetically. So Donna, you get the first last word, so it has to be really quick so everyone else gets theirs.
Right, because I've already dominated the conversation. Find someone that you can rely on to be your trusted source, your trusted person, right? And then try to be that for someone else as well.
Excellent. Eleni?
Yeah, I would strongly recommend everyone to be authentic, be yourself, stand up for yourself. Don't feel that you're too much. You're enough with whoever you are, and keep going with what you have as a goal. I really liked what Donna said, having a goal and go for it, no matter what the rest are talking about and say to you.
That's right.
Swati?
Yeah, create your own brand and lead by example.
Excellent. All excellent points to finish on. So thank you, Donna, Eleni, and Swati. This is the last session from WITS, which means that please remember to do your feedback.
Your feedback. Quoting feedback.
Yeah, feedback. And so I will say thank you very much and hand up over to Una to close the session.
Thank you, everyone. That was really, really interesting. And please remember to do your feedback. And I'll close the session now. And thank you again. Thank you.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing is.
What? Thank
Thank
you.
you for
Say again, Swati?
Thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Well,
It was a
thank you
pleasure. We
for
learned
doing
a
it.
lot in the
Thank you
process.
so much. I wish we could have more hours to
thank
talk
you.
about, and hopefully one day we can meet in person.
We'll
Yeah,
all
that'd be
meet in
great.
person at GSE UK.
That
I'll
would be
see you in
great.
November.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not going to the Nordics, so
Okay.
I get to travel once a year.
Okay.
Well,
We'll meet at GSE UK.
Yeah, so we'll be there at GSE UK, and hopefully Una will be there too.
Hopefully. Yes, hopefully.
This is the
Okay.
plan.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a
Thank
million,
you.
guys.
Bye. Bye.
Have
Thanks.
a nice rest of the day.
You
Yeah.
too.
All right,
Bye-bye.
thanks a million. See you later. I think we're okay, guys. Thanks a million. See you later.